Welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez, joining you live, live to tape. Joining me also live to tape. Voted in high school most likely to meet Chris Hansen unexpectedly. It's Robert Wyatt.
I was here delivering a pizza. I don't know why you're here,
That's
but
that is
it's
Can
just
the
you
awkward.
that is the
can you
Adam.
open the pizza box, sir?
No, no, we're
It's all.
not playing Dick in a Box.
It's just filled with condoms and lube. That's the Adam Carolla's thing. Like if you're ever sitting there thinking that you're gonna meet some underage girl, you park like 2 blocks away, and then you call like 3 pizza delivery services to there, and if they open the door and a camera crew comes out, you just turn around and leave. You know, that's the point. Or hire a maid service to show up. You know, something like that, or a plumber.
Send in the blue canary first.
Dude,
Mm-hmm.
it might be the best 500. Like to hire a plumber, it might be the best $500 you've ever spent. So I'm just not
I mean,
us,
the
not that
downside,
any
the
of us.
downside though, is if you hire a plumber and he goes in there and he bangs the hot chick, I mean, then you're kind of out.
Yeah, but you know what? You'd rather him do that
And
than
that's a good point. Have to
sit
meet
down
Chris
with Chris
Hansen.
Hansen. Like you don't want the last person you ever want to see, even if you're like perfectly. She said she was 25 on Bumble. Like you go sit down there, Chris Hansen. There's like, you bitch, you ruined my life, bitch. You ruined my life. You ruined my life. Anyway, also joining us tonight, the girls at the gym call him Lieutenant Dan because he ain't got no legs. It's Jared Stepp.
You think I go to the gym?
No, I don't think you go to the gym. That's why the doctor
No,
says get them
that doctor
triglycerides.
said you have a problem.
That's eating. That's not gym.
Potato,
Uh,
tomato.
Yeah.
so in my hand right here, I have a VP9 frame. I sent the slide off to be mailed by
Well, according to
CHPWF.
the government, you have a full VP9
I
there.
have a full, powerful VP9, and screwing around with it for a $500 pistol from Palmetto State Armory, and it came with its night sights, and you're like. As far as ergonomically, the feel and the trigger breaks pretty far forward, so it feels pretty nice. It's still like a 5.5 pound trigger, but it breaks relatively pretty far forward. I mean, it is a well built.
The
Um,
VP9 is a fantastic. It was really a fantastic gun.
yeah, it's
And I
great.
mean, I understand why it didn't. I understand why it didn't really, catch on. But I mean, it was just a great gun. And if you can get used to the way that the magazine drops out, where it's down low
Yep,
instead of the traditional button that's
paddle.
so common in the Americas, I think that's great. I mean, it is arguably the best way to drop a mag. But in America, we're so used to the button
Yep.
that it's hard to explain to somebody that why this is such a better feature than every other gun sold in America.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the way it feels in the hands, like I have the LTT P30, which is basically a hammer-fired version of the VP9. Like the grip is very similar and stuff like that. But like on the P30, the trigger breaks so far back because it's a double-action pistol, and the way that the hammer is
Oh,
designed, because you have to have the geometry to have it release from a double-action position, and then also have a notch for it to release from a single-action position. They
right.
break pretty far back into your hand, and so like even with the large grips, the trigger reach is still pretty short. And so the farther the trigger gets back to the frame, the harder it is to kind of pull straight. And but like it's a very high quality, very great gun, and just the striker fire feeling of that P30 with it breaking farther forward has been pretty nice. And you can get these like with some like Lazy Wolf triggers and stuff like that. You can get these things to be pretty freaking crisp with the brakes. But
I
yeah,
thought
so
I thought even a stock trigger was actually pretty good though.
it's pretty good. Now, like as far as if it was 5 years ago, it would probably have the best striker fire trigger on the market. The
Oh,
the
hands
pro
down. Yeah.
the problem is now it lives in a world with the PDP and with the Canic rivals,
Yeah.
and so it becomes pretty hard to sit there and deal with the Walther based triggers and do it pretty well. But I sent it off to CHPWS and they have a 4 week guarantee to mill it, and so it's going to come back with an acro cut, and then I'm going to mount this Steiner MPS on the thing, and have my one screw system, and kind of like my life. Anyways, but they kind of like mount this thing
But
on the on it, and they'll have a little bit of space on one side, either the front or the back, because that's just the Acro slightly larger than the MPS. But in the future, it allows me to run the MPS or the Acro or whatever, because I really do think that's going to be kind of the enclosed footprint of the future. So,
Right.
other thing I did, Mike asked me, I was like, hey, you want to go bowling tonight? He goes, I want to go shooting. And I said, all right, let's go load bullets. So I brought him primer tubes and packages of primers, and I said, you fill these up. And he filled all 5 primer tubes up, and I went out there and I started loading. And then I would say, all right, come out here. He goes, well, what am I doing now? I was like, no, you're still filling primer tubes. This one's empty. Here you go. And so, like, he just kept filling them up. And so we loaded probably about 900 rounds. And once he kept all the primer tubes filled up, he started case gauging ammo. And literally, in probably, I want to say about an hour and 10 minutes, we had loaded 900. And we finished with all the primer tubes filled up and all the ammo case gauged. Like by the time I was doing every time I finish a reloading session, I always fix the mistakes. So if there's like a bent case or like a primer that's in sideways, I pull that bullet, I knock the primer out, I reuse the primer into a new
Really?
case, and I do all that. So like, I know
I
exactly.
never do that.
I
Like
ex-
ever.
I
I
know
throw it away.
I know
That is
exactly what
awesome.
the charge is. I get my primer back and I get my bullet back. Because most of the time, primer's not messed up. Like if you really F up, like Lee Loadmaster the thing, then like Lee Loadmaster,
Chonk.
that could kill a primer. But a Dillon 650 is very gentle on primers, even when they put them in sideways. And so like you
Oh,
can just
you should see what a 1050 does to them.
oh does it
Yeah, they're done. They are 6 ways to done. There's
I
nothing
need to
left.
I need to reload some ammo. I'm running out of bullets again.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I just need to sit down and do it, and I just hate doing it. I mean, reloading is a means to an end, but I've got
I
all the stuff. I've got a brand new bullet feeder, and I just don't want to do it.
the
I should get a bullet feeder.
Well,
I
I spent money.
I just want brass sorted, washed, and dried. And the
I'll tell you
reloading
where to get it,
the
Jared. You can
reloading
get it for $250.
well, I can get it for free. I could just do that, and I don't make that much money an hour, so it's worth my time.
No, Tommy, you're not coming over to my house and taking it when I'm not home.
I just like I'm just sitting there and like going through and washing this stuff, but like loading, like I like loading. I like sitting there and seeing a pile of bullets, being like, I just did that, and then shooting a little tiny group and being like, I made that, and not running into
Yeah.
any problems. Like I find it very satisfying to do that, and so yeah, it's just getting it separated, cleaned, and dried is the biggest headache for me as far as doing that. And it's probably pretty sorting's not that hard. Putting it into wash, not that hard. Pulling it out to dry it, not that hard. It's just these things that are taking like 6 hours at a time. It's like sort it, wash it for 3 hours, drain it,
Bop it.
wash it,
Twist it.
bop it, dry it. That kind of stuff just kind of bugs. But anyway, we went out there and we zeroed some optics. Zeroed the RMR on the P30. Good enough. Fine. Like all in the black at 25 yards on a B8. Little bit to the left. Could be me. Could be the optic.
Smoking like a cop.
Yeah, a little bit to the left. All in the black.
I like those P30s a lot.
They're
great guns. HK really does do good firearms. The problem is they know it and they price accordingly.
They price accordingly and they do not put out guns before they are ready. Like it took them 5 years after it basically took them till 2020 to make an optics ready pistol in the VP9.
Yeah, the I cannot remember the gun that they have. It's a hammer fired gun, but the biggest critique that I had against it was it felt like the hammer spring itself was probably 2 pounds heavier than it needed to be. And I understand the whole reliability. I get that.
Yeah.
But it's like you take a gun that is just not there and you take 2 pounds off that hammer spring weight and it's still very reliable, but that gun then gets real good. But I'm sure they had a reason for it, and it's probably just reliability. It's like if you pull through that, if the bullet doesn't go off, I mean, the firing pin is going to send enough energy to propel the bullet out on its
like
own.
My HK45s are kind of like that. But yeah, like the LAMP30, I mean, it literally has probably like a 4.5 pound brake, and it's always in that light mode, and it is accurate. It is very accurate.
Well, here's one thing, because I imagine most everyone isn't familiar with the LEM trigger. The LEM trigger is probably one of the most unique triggers out there.
It is
It's basically takes all the pros of a double single gun and all the cons of a double single gun, and it fixes the cons while still keeping the pros. And it's a snazzy system, and
Yep.
I really, 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 really like it.
Yeah.
So it's a three piece, basically what turns into a three piece hammer. And so it's like the bottom part of the hammer's cocked, there's a spinning axle in the middle, and then you have the top part of the hammer. And so like the bottom of the hammer's pre-cocked. The trigger, when it interacts with the trigger bar, moves the top part of the hammer back with very, very, very light weight. You fire it, it breaks, it resets, the bottom part of the hammer gets cocked, and then as you let go, the hammer goes back to its normal resting position, but it has a reset.
Do you have to come all the way off
Nope.
that?
Nope. Because
Essentially,
it's just
you're shooting a double single gun always in a slightly heavier single action.
the single
I'm okay
action.
with
The
that.
So
single
it's
action.
almost like
si-
almost like a two-stage trigger.
The single action
Yeah.
has the same weight as the HK, a regular HK gun in single action. Like if I took you, I gave you a factory Beretta, and I cocked
Yeah.
the hammer, but the trigger was able to be let out all the way. The break feels exactly the same. The only difference is HKs do not have the great reset, and so when you let out to reset, so you get your reset right there, and then you're able to fire. So it has a little bit longer of a reset, like most HK triggers do. It's when you sit there and you break apart the parts and look at the geometry of the hammer is pretty much the same as a regular factory hammer. So therefore, it'll break at the same point with the same spring. It'll have the same weight. The only difference is that it's already pre-cocked. You just can't see it. And the other cool thing is the advantages of having like your thumb over the hammer while you're holstering and all this other stuff, and then
Right.
a double
exactly.
strike. The double strike
Yeah.
capability feels like a
That's-
actual HK full double action pole. The LEM
I was
always
talking
feels super light.
I was talking to Josh King. So we did our Thursday match, and I'm so in the habit because I carry my PO7 a lot, but I pretty much am just exclusively carrying the shield. But I've gotten in the habit of like when I holster the gun because I appendix carry it, I put my thumb over the back of the slide like I would for a PO7 because I'm like, where's that hammer? I want to be able to hold that hammer while
And
I
then
actually
you pull the trigger.
yeah, exactly. But even then it's like I like having if I'm gonna appendix carry something, I really do like having that hammer there just to because it stops. I mean, there's a little bit of hesitation on it, but the shield works so well, it's just hard not to want to carry the gun all the time.
Yep. So we're sitting there shooting B8s, and I still shot about 60% the size of my P30 group with this freaking PDP.
Nice.
Like, as much as I like the feel of the VP9, I like the feel of the VP9 better. I like the feel of the P30. I think the P30 is an excellent carry gun. This gun is a freaking laser beam, and it is very easy to shoot. And if you want to buy a $500 PDP and hang a TLR1 and a brass backstrap off the back of it, guess what it weighs the same as? The steel
the
one.
steels?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, you can. I mean, they're great guns. I was literally just hanging around. I went to go see a Sportsman's had some primers yesterday, and there's a guy who was like, "Oh, I'm looking about to get a pistol and all the stuff." And I was like, "If you're starting from scratch, like a PDP is a great place to go. Like a Glock PDP or grab an HK, either one of those, you're set." And the last thing I ran into last night is a guy at the range, brand new shooter. He pulls out of his bag. He goes, "I want to zero this," and he pulls out a CZ Scorpion Evo 3 Plus, and it's got like the tail hook brace, and it's the adjustable tail hook brace. And I helped him, taught him how to zero it and set it down, and we shot it. And I handled that thing, and I'm like, kind of want to sell my MP5. Like, I love my MP5. I love my MP5s.
Don't
I'm not
you
going to do it.
dare.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
I'm gonna
Actually,
kick
you know
you
what?
off this show. No.
But like,
I'll buy your MP5.
you
Give me that.
you literally take out the mag and seat the mag, and you're like, this is butter. and then like the bolt charging and the safety's better and the optic system's better. It has
Well,
it has more
Yeah,
recoil.
but
Not
still you
much.
shoot it.
everything is better. Everything is better than an MP5,
When you're an
except for
MP
maybe like just if you're not shooting at full auto, everything is better than an MP5. And that's probably a fair statement because the world just moved on. The MP5 is
yes.
still a great gun, but it's a full auto gun. And
It's
if you're
a
not shooting at full auto, then it doesn't really take the
well
get everything that that gun's meant to do.
it is literally one generation past a German MP40.
Mm,
It
mm-hmm.
is one generation past. So when you pull it out and you look
Yeah.
at it and you see how it's folded, you see how it's welded together, how the magazines go into it. It feels like when you're accessorizing it and putting like an optic or a stock on it, it feels like you're playing like a Call of Duty World War II. It's like this stuff shouldn't exist for this gun in this
That's
time
the
period, but
point.
it does, you know? It's just like there's no red dots in 1942. And when you put in a red dot on an MP5, you're just like, this is can go together. It's all right. It still is the best submachine gun locking system, period. But when you grab something that was, you know, designed in 2011 or something like that, it is just leaps and bounds different as far as a
Well,
manual of arms and bolt hold
well,
opens
yeah,
and
because they
everything.
stood on the shoulder of giants. I mean,
Yep.
why is the PDP so great and these other guns? Because they stood on the shoulders of
Yep.
giants, and that's exactly what
Yep.
you want in all innovation.
Yep.
I mean, the CZ is a fantastic firearm. You're never going to get just that look and the feel and the nostalgia and the fact that John McClane shot it in Die Hard cool factor that you get with an MP5, but
Yeah.
you can't objectively say that
The
that the
Rock
world
used
hasn't
the
moved on.
Scorpion Evo in Fast and Furious 37.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've only seen one of those Fast and Furiouses ever.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of cool nostalgia like 1911s. Like obviously 1911s feel great, they look great. There's a lot of stuff they're fun to shoot, but it's just like times moved on, and the MP5 it hasn't moved on as far. But when you sit there and you
I
hold
don't.
something that's lighter, easier to handle, it's much easier to like me and you both have mounted, you know, the claw mounts onto our MP5s, and
Yeah,
both of us have the experience that that was not the experience we would have preferred.
yeah. It's funny. I don't know if it's just because I'm just so closely related to guns, but I've never seen like people cling so heavily to old technology as with guns. I mean, like, I don't see people having these long drawn out conversations about, boy, I sure wish my brand new Honda EV had a carburetor in it or some crazy thing like that, right? I mean, like everybody has embraced the idea that technology moves forward and stuff like that, but it seems in guns, it's like you have people that are like, no, if it's not a 1911, then it's trash, or like,
Well, we're not.
we have to hang on to these old technologies and like these revolvers. Like, honestly, seriously, in this day and age, who the fuck actually still like legitimately uses a revolver as a method to like do anything except for these people that are either selling classes or the people that took the class and then they're just like clinging on and say, look, my 6-shot 22 revolver is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It'll
seven
never
seven
jam up except for
se-
when it does.
7 or 8 shot revolver,
All I'm
Robert.
saying is that they also happen to sell fedoras with every single revolver.
I
You get
honestly
a
think
fedora
like
for
some of
free.
these people, they actually are living in like 1950s, like
Meh.
film noir detective novels.
Listen here now, see, I got a revolver
Yeah.
in my pocket. Meh.
I mean,
I mean,
there
next
are
thing you know, they're going to
pretty.
be talking about their Colt pocket pistol and 25 or 32 ACP. Looking at you, Alex.
Oh yeah.
I like listen the fact that our friends Nate and Alex bought like a 22 caliber Beretta Bobcats and Tomcats is a significant move up in my opinion than having a 5 shot 38 special putting a bullet out at 600 feet per second. Like it's twice as fast as an airsoft, but you know it's just
I get the nostalgia of it though. That's the thing. I truly get the nostalgia
nostalgia's
factor of a
powerful,
revolver,
man.
and
Nostalgia's
I think it's
powerful.
awesome. But it's like, I mean, objectively, who sits there and says, "Hey, if I'm going into a gunfight, I mean, this snub nose revolver, this looks like a powerful weapon. Oh, it has less power than a 9 millimeter. Yeah, and a
Listen,
380.
Your shield's too big.
Yeah,
Yeah. Your shield's too big, Robert. Your shield
listen.
is too big.
yeah.
If I wanted to dual wield guns, I'd do it with revolvers.
The only reason you do that is because when you actually try to akimbo semi-autos, you end up doing like this thing a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd end up
revolvers like
doubling.
bam, 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 bam. See, it looks cooler when you do it like that.
Exactly. That's what
And
revolvers are
if you
about.
wear the
Looking
fedora and the trench
cool.
coat on a dark misty evening, I mean, there's a
There-
You
certain
turn into an active shooter.
There's
yes.
there's like certain things that are like on the revolver, like you could like people go like, oh, like it's got great sights and this one you can mount a red dot to, and then like once you do those things to the gun, it completely takes the usefulness of what they used to be. Like as far as
yeah.
like a pocket carry gun, like, well, now you can't pocket carry it, so now you got to put it in your waistband. Is there better options that have better sights, optics, and higher round counts and a more powerful ammunition that you could possibly appendix? Yes, but only 79.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, do whatever makes you happy. That's the beauty of beauty of guns. There's like a bazillion guns to make everybody happy in the world. But I just don't get like how people can like with a straight face say that a revolver by today's standards and technology is the superior platform. I just don't think it exists.
There is a 1981 Colt Detective Special on Utah Gun Exchange right now, and I'm eyeballing it. I am eyeballing that thing hard because I just kind of want one. Why? I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just some sort of desire that I have.
Oh,
I get it. I have, if you open up my safe, I have a safe filled with guns that are functionally useless. I love my M1 Garand. Is it really something that I'm going to go to war with? Probably not. Neither is my Enfield. But
yeah,
I love them. I think they're cool.
Well,
and I think that the revolvers exist in that world of cool.
I was sitting there filling out the paperwork, having them go through the stuff to pick up my VP9, and they had an HK Mark 23 SOCOM pistol in the case, and I said, I'm going to play with that now. Put it in my hands. And they put it in my hands, and I look at the price tag. It's $2,400. It's the size of a Desert Eagle. It holds 12 rounds of 45 ACP. It's guaranteed to shoot 1.5 inches at 50 yards. Like it is the most.
I can only get so erect.
It's gonna pop off. It's gonna pop off. So I'm sitting there holding this thing, and I'm just like, man, I like literally right here on my desk is a 12-inch action fixtures of solid snake. This thing's like 25 years old. And in the top part of the case, it's Snake's SOCOM pistol, his Mark 23 with a suppressor and his LAM. And I've always wanted one of those things, but I have it's kind of like my MP5. I am much better if there's anything to ever go down shooting this PDP with a dot than I am good with an MP5. Like it's literally a hindrance. And so yeah, there's many things, and
all
there's
I'm
many
saying,
pieces
Tommy,
of
is
technology that have been passed
if you
by.
take that MP5 and you get what some of the fun kids like to call a Hoffman super safety, it could be super fun, and then that MP5 could be a lot of usefulness.
It could be.
Could be.
Robert, let's talk about your M&P.
So let's see. So Thursday, we had our indoor match, and I took my my 2.0. This was the spec series. Is that what they call it? The spec series or something like that?
5-inch M&P non-core.
So I took that and I gave it to Josh Dobson. Josh, he's a local guy who can cut slides and whatnot. And he did my shield, and so he did this one as well. And I gave it to him on Thursday, and I got it back on Saturday at the match that I showed up just to. I showed up to do the new shooter brief.
F you and your friends. And I went home. F you and your friends. Shut up your fat face. Go ahead. Keep going.
Hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I mean, it was really sweet that he did it. I did pay kind of like a get it done quick fee. So it was like $75. So it hurt. It hurt a lot.
But you have it back already.
But I got it back, and so it's cool. Gosh dang it, I sure do like just the way. Here's the question I was going to ask you guys. So this MP has the curved trigger, and I totally understand a lot of folks prefer the flat trigger.
I like the
Do
curved.
you think if I found another M&P and it came with the flat trigger, do you think that I could find like the curved trigger? Because I like the curved trigger.
You can
I mean,
you
I'm
can
probably the only person in the world that I love the curved trigger. Or
you can
besides you,
find
Tommy.
the curved trigger shoe. You can find the curved trigger shoe, and the M&P's pretty good about having the curved trigger shoe work
Yeah.
with other parts.
Mhm.
I'm
Parts are
not a
available for the M&Ps.
yeah, I'm not a fan of the M&P factory flat trigger that's coming on some of the newer models. It's kind of weird. It's kind of gritty and it kind of binds on stuff. Like it's not as good as the curved trigger. That being
Yeah,
said,
Sam Perkins, he actually came to the match and he had an M&P there and it had that Apex trigger you guys are talking about.
yes,
And yeah, it's very very light.
it's
Right?
I mean, I
sporty.
don't actually like it, but it's so light that it almost feels spongy how light it is because you take it to the wall and then it breaks.
Yes,
It's just
because
like, oh, that's very very easy to shoot. And
my
so
favorite
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's really nice.
my favorite combination was running the Apex competition kit with the Duty trigger return spring. So they'd give you a beefed up trigger return spring that was more beefed up than the factory spring.
Hmm.
And so that would actually add weight on the way back because it's trying to return itself. And then you would almost
Okay.
have a very, very, very slight wall. And then the gun would fire. And it was, you could still run it pretty quick. And the other part is, too, is like it helps you reset the gun faster because that
Yeah.
forward positive pressure trying to reset the trigger on its own did help. Like the M&P
Yeah,
trigger
you're
system,
not ghosting off of it so that
yeah.
you're yeah.
The M
You're gonna make Tom buy another M&P.
I sure like this gun. The other thing that was cool was I actually have a holster for it. It's just a ghost holster. It works just fine. But I was like, well, I need to get some magazines or some mag pouches, and I was kind of like going back and forth. And Rob Chavis said, hey, use the ghost ones, and then Tommy, you brought up probably I thought was the best argument as far as this is concerned is if you get the 360 pouches, you can put those on a belt and then just change out your holster to whatever it is. But then you have parts compatibility for like basically every single
every
double stack that you would potentially ever
yep.
want to shoot. And
I
you're
think
never
they'll even take like
kind
Glock
I thought that
21
was such a great
mags.
idea.
Yeah, it's like so like on the backup, so they have the little white side screw and you can push them in so you
Yeah.
can get a CZ mag or back them out and get a double stack Glock 45 mag in there. And then they also come with each one of them comes with two different pouches for bullets out or bullets facing forward. Like if you have your set rig, like I like to shoot a Glock, I have my precision holsters, magazine pouches for that Glock and my precision.
Yeah, I think I would have got a precision holster, but I was seriously
When
I
it's
was like just rooting around in my junk
yeah,
parts bin thing, and I like, oh, I actually have a left-handed M&P holster. I'm like, sweet, I'm good to go.
yeah, and the
From
one
the
thing
last time we did this.
that's like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Ghost
okay.
Souls, the Ghost 360 pouches. Like they are the best backup pouch you can get. They are good enough that you could run them full time, but definitely
Hmm.
for if you're gonna sit here and play around with, Jared's got 2011s and Glocks, but he shows up with other stuff every once in a while, and even when he sells stuff and brings stuff back, having the stuff that's there that he can just swap onto, it's fantastic, especially if they take 45 or different size
My
magazines. Like you can swap over to them.
Oh
my
yeah.
general purpose magazines are always S-Tac pouches. In
The
general, you can
Pre-
pretty much
yep.
shove whatever you want into
They
S-Tacs.
they are the
those work really
competition
well.
version of what the S-Tac is for duty and tactical use, or the Ghost ones, and they're great. They're fantastic.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, STAC is arguably, I mean, and I know Jared agree with this. I mean, they're probably one of the best friends to the law enforcement. I mean, they've always gone above and beyond just to help you guys out for your cop match.
Oh, they're always great for our match, but I mean, the nice thing I like about S-Tac is I don't have to defend them. I don't have to sell their products. I don't have to do anything like that because their products sell themselves.
They're just
Yeah.
good.
And that's the type of sponsor that we always try to look for the matches. And that's actually how I get most of the sponsors is I reach out to them or I try to contact uh, a person with the company that sells gear that I like. We've had some companies try to come on board, and I'm like, I don't really want
Yep.
you because your products suck. But also, I accept free things. So it's this
And
this
then
double-edged sword.
inevitably, all those free things go to the next match. I can't figure that out. No, you
The
can't. Bring...
that's the one thing. It's like when you recommend you sit their products to people or something like that. It's just like there's stuff that I use on a regular basis that I probably would not recommend for people who are getting into the sport. Like I like Beretta 92 handguns. I will tell you that the
Yeah.
quality of Beretta 92 handguns that's currently being produced by Beretta, it's like, do they make great handguns? Can you get a good one? Absolutely. Can you guarantee that you're going to buy a good one? Maybe not.
Hopefully.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I don't know. I no, you're right. I mean, I sure do like them, but it's no. I mean, like if you're getting into the guns today, if you're getting into USPSA, I mean, it's easy to tell somebody to go get a Canic or a PDP or
Yep.
there's just so
There's
many
a
proven
handful of them.
firearms out there that just
Well,
work.
we have so many cops that start trying to get into competition, and then you have all these guys, and it's always hilarious because right now in the Timmy world, the staccatos are the thing. And so
What?
I have all these cops coming to me and be like, I should get a staccato. What staccato should I get? Meh, 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 meh. And I'm like, don't buy a stupid ass staccato. Like do you have any experience with the 1911? Like, do you have any experience with safeties? Do you have any experience with any of this? No, I've only shot a Glock. Okay, do not buy a staccato. Buy either a Canic steel frame or a P320 Legion, and that's the list. Pick
Right.
one of those guns, whichever one you like more. Buy that, and it's like that's all you need. And
Buy
I
buy a
have so many
34
guys who
buy a 34 MOS, a good steel plate, and put it like a brass
right.
split plug in the back. Like there's a lot of ways of doing this.
It's
Great.
just it's funny when these people but part of it is they don't want to have their duty gun. They want to have a different gun for competition, and that's actually one reason why I stopped competing with my Glocks, is just because it's fun to shoot something else. I have my Glocks for work, and I shoot my Glocks a lot at work, but it's fun to shoot something else where there is an audible, there's a line, there's a separation between fun and work and play. And for me, 2011s are play.
Yeah.
2011s are a lot of fun. They're stupid, and I love them. And if you're willing to put the time and effort into it, yeah, they're fantastic options. But I also don't think that every single person in the world should start off with a staccato or a 1911 or whatever. And all these guys who have all these years of just drawing and shooting, no safety manipulation, their grip changes with a 1911, their
And
grip
not a
changes with
whole
a safety.
the one thing that
So
bugs me with the 2011
it's just
crew,
silly.
the new guys who are getting 2011s, the one thing that bugs me the most is there's not a lot of safety manipulation, and there's not a lot of moving around with the gun in their hand, which means
Right.
they like to leave their finger on the trigger,
Oh
and
yeah.
they also like to have
Oh,
a gun with a
Andy
2.5 pound trigger.
Andy was
Well,
talking on the shooting version of his podcast, another shooting show, and gosh darn, it was his co-host Jeff. They were talking about, so just what you said. A lot of the cops are trying to get into these 2011s, and they want to get these staccatos. And there's a whole subreddit of them like, well, yeah, but I got to increase the weight of the staccato on the trigger. It's like, yeah, that kind of undermines the whole point of that.
yeah, why?
And it's just like,
Yeah, but
you know, that,
Reddit's just trash in general. Most of the
oh, it is.
firearm stuff on Reddit is just all fanboyism, and it's just, oh man.
Oh yeah,
It's, I mean, yeah, you
I
take it
do.
for what it's worth.
I
But it makes me, it's good for the lulz.
I will say that Staccato makes a great gun, and I like staccatos. I've owned many staccatos. I've also sold all of them, but I mean they're good guns. I like them a lot, but I don't think they're this magic talisman that they are projected to be.
Yep.
Well,
And
they
if
no, of
somebody
course not.
sucks shooting with a Glock, yeah, you get a little bit of more mechanical advantage shooting a single action heavier firearm, but it's not going to fix any of these other issues that they have. And what they really need is to just stop
well,
sucking.
the other part is too is it can also increase the problems they have with the gun that they actually carry for work. When you grab something
What
like
I
a
have enjoyed.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
When just when you
Oh,
grab something like a staccato with the light trigger and a grip that's like that and a little bit lighter recoil, when you like it's always easier to go up in recoil and easier shooting. Like you can always grab something and shoot it, and it's great, it's easier. But if you practice with that easier thing, it's very harder to go back down to something like that. Like when I grab and I shoot 10,000 rounds out of my 9mm, and then I go grab my 220 or my HK45 and go try to shoot 200 rounds out of that. The adjustment to the gun that requires heavier trigger, more recoil,
Right.
stuff like that, like it is a noticeable difference. And it's just like, I have to like pay attention and shoot again.
So what I noticed, because I've gone, for the past couple matches, I've shot my shield, and what I have noticed the most is going from this super heavyweight Shadow 2 to a very, very light micro compact. You're right, there is a difference, and what I've observed is it takes me about 2 to 3 stages to kind of what would be acclimatize, I guess.
Acclimate or guess.
Acclimate. Yeah, acclimate to the differences in the two firearms. But I have the ability or the fortune, I guess, that I have decent enough fundamentals with the Shadow 2 that I can go to the micro compact and be like, okay, the fundamentals still exist. They still have to be there. And so it takes me less time,
Well,
where a lot of people don't have that.
right. It's like I've always talked about in the past. It's all about certain guns just have more mechanical advantage, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
smaller the gun is, the less mechanical advantage it has. So the more it demands perfection on your part for your grip, for your trigger, for all of those things.
Yeah.
While a heavier, larger gun is a little bit more lax in that, and you can get a little sloppy with your grip on your Shadow because it weighs 13 pounds. But if you have that same grip that you use with your Shadow, because you know you can get away with it, you transfer that to a Shield Plus, you transfer that to a 365, whatever it is, then you're gonna get slapped, and you have to. Right.
Yeah.
Now I have to. The problem
forgot.
is too is like
I forgot how to shoot.
no matter how hard we grip on the gun that we normally shoot, and we're saying that we're gripping hard, your body will go into the conservation of energy and basically grip the gun as hard as it takes for it to perform the way it wants to perform. And then
Yeah,
when you
and
drop
this
down to
actually
that other
speaks to
gun,
what you and
you drop
I was
down
gonna
to
say
that
this
other.
speaks to what you and Jared were saying, where I mean, like, if you go from a Glock to a Staccato and you're not used to the manual of arms and things like that, when I would first shot my first stage, I would try and shoot that stage like I would a Shadow 2. And I'm shooting it very predictively and I'd roll into a target and I would run the splits in the same manner and fashion that I would with my Shadow 2, because that's what I have shot for the past 6, 7, 8 years. But you quickly realize of like, wait a minute, I'm not actually processing the information that's coming in, and it takes you a second to be like, hang on, we're not shooting slower, but we're shooting more aware of what's going on. And at that point, all the fundamentals start just falling back into place because they do have. You're absolutely right, Jared. I mean, a heavier gun just gives you more to work with. There's no doubt about that. A 1 pound, 1.5 pound trigger makes things easier. That's just a reality. But I think it's funny. I know
It
I
also
say,
makes a
don't
lot.
go hop around to different guns, and I'm shooting this different gun just because I want to.
No, it's the off
I mean,
season.
I don't.
Go ahead and do what you
Well,
want. But
it's also, once you get to a certain level, if you're starting to shoot 10, 20,000 rounds a year, Robert has that capability. Tom has that capability. I have that capability where if I want to swap it over to my 2011, to my Glock, to my 365, whatever, it'll probably take me, like what Robert said, a mag, maybe less, honestly, maybe one shot. And then I'll be like, oh, right, this is how I shoot this gun. Whereas somebody who only shoots, a couple boxes a year, trying to swap in between a Glock and a 2011 is not a winning proposition.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
they're always just so far behind the 8 ball at that point, I guess.
well, one gun makes things easier, but in the adverse, it makes also the other thing harder.
True.
The more you use something as the crutch to make it easier, when you go back to reality, it's going to make it harder.
But well, it is and it isn't, and this is kind of one of the things I try and talk about. I agree with you, Tommy. It does do that. The one thing I've noticed, and the red dots have really kind of really emphasized this. If you start a brand new shooter off and they have a dot, it allows them to focus on all of the other fundamentals.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when they go back to an iron-sighted gun, those fundamentals that they have learned, they will transfer over at a faster rate than if you go from irons, where people are like, okay, I have to line up the dots or I have to line up the top of the bumpy things. And
Mhm.
then even then, it's like, well, did I jerk the trigger or not? Whereas with a red dot, it's like, did you jerk the trigger? Well, are the holes where they should have been? No. Then yes, you did. You can't say, well, my sights were misaligned or anything like that. You're just taking out variables in the learning phase,
Yep.
so that when you transfer over into the practical application, it there's benefit to that. And I think,
Yep.
and Jared would be able to speak to this because I don't know, but I suspect that the qualification scores with red dots have probably gone up.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
It's the same thing as when they gave all the Marines ACOGs and they're like, wow, we can kill people pretty far away. This is pretty good. We're getting really good
Well,
at this.
we actually have a really funny thing going on at our range right now because there's something called a marksmanship ribbon, where if you can do the qual in a certain time frame with a certain score, you can win this very, very coveted marksmanship ribbon. But the funny thing is the gatekeeper of the marksmanship ribbon changes the requirements for the marksmanship ribbon like every other time he does it, just to make it so nobody can get it because he has it and some of his friends have it. Nobody else can have it. But me and a couple other guys also all qualified for the marksmanship ribbon with a red dot, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, 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 that doesn't count. That doesn't count. That's a different system. Like, you're in a different category. We have to come up with a different rule set for you. I'm like, well, first off, you said that after. Secondly, that there are no categories in the streets, boys. It's open.
Yeah.
100%.
The,
If you show up with a goddamn AK-47 Draco, that's what you're gonna fight with. Or if you have a 5-shot 32 ACP pistol, that's what you got. Like, it's not, oh no no, hey, you got a rifle, let me go get my rifle, so it's samesies. It's no, you bring what
Time out.
you shoot
Time
what you
out.
get. And so I got really frustrated with that, and I've actually had this conversation quite a bit with other people because they'll talk about like, well, I don't think our for the cop match patrol and then patrol optics, and people are like, well, I don't think this guy should be allowed to shoot this gun in patrol. I'm like, well, that's his patrol gun. That's what
that's
he
what he's
carries.
carrying. That's what he's rolling with.
It's so he gets to use it. Like, well, that's unfair. I'm like, I'm sorry. So is life. Like,
This brings me up to
figured
something.
out.
I was waiting for something over at Sportsman's Warehouse. They have a huge vortex section. I go into this huge vortex section, and I'm playing with
Oh, the Provo one.
yeah, I'm playing with the 1 to 10 PST,
It's
and I'm like,
nice.
that's nice, that's cool. And I'm playing with, I've had the other ones, and then I found like what I almost thought they have a 2.5 to 10.5 PST Viper, no
Uh-huh.
Viper GST or whatever like that. The eye relief at 2.5 and 10.5 is effing amazing. You can basically almost have the stock in 3 different types of positions and have a clear and open view. And then when you roll it to 10, it is the eye box is so much better than even the 1 to 10 um,
Wow.
Razer HD.
Plus, a cool thing about that Viper PST 2 to 10, um, it recently was just involved in an officer involved shooting where there was a crazy guy who had armor on and night vision and all this stuff. And one of my friends was on top of a roof with a clip on night vision with a Vortex PST 2 to 10 and engaged the bad guy and killed the bad guy with it. And his gun
Good.
got taken for evidence. And I called Vortex, one of my buddies over there. They sent out a bunch of Vortex stuff for the guy for free because
Yeah.
they knew his gun got taken for evidence. So they sent him out all this stuff, like
Wow.
$2,000-3,000 worth of stuff for free, and said, "Hey, I know your stuff got stolen, but by the
I,
judge. So here's some replacement stuff for doing good work." And I thought that was really cool. I like
That is
Vortex
pretty
as a
baller.
company.
the
That's freaking awesome.
the Vortex one, and I'll take a look at the loopholed one just to see what it is. But something like that Viper, 2.5 to 10.5 PST with an offset, something like a Delta point, a 2.5
Mhm.
Delta point on a T-Rex mount. that is a setup. Like I was not a fan of the variable powers because messing around with the 1 to 6, 1 to 8, 1 to 10. I grabbed that 2 to 10 and I'm like, oh, this is the game
Yes.
changer. This is the game changer. This is the way it should be. Like we got suckered
Mhm.
into thinking we needed one power when we didn't need one power. We needed a 2.5 that had this awesome eye relief and no scope shadow in the thing, and then a red dot, put a hollow sun on a T-Rex mount to the side. Both of those you can get for the price you'd spend on a Razor 1 to 6 or 1 to 10, and your shooting experience would be much better. It was phenomenal. I just it
Well,
changed my whole mind almost.
especially when every single person running a 1 to 6 or 1 to 8 or a 1 to 10 has a mini red dot on the side. It's like, well, do you really need a 1 power if you have a 1 power optic on your rifle
Correct.
already?
Oh, that's a good
So,
point.
And then you have
Yeah,
the
I never thought of it like that. That's actually a really good point.
and then you have this very uncomfortable shooting experience when you get anything past 2 power on that Razor and you get to 3 or 4 or 5, and it's just like unless you're exactly dialed in behind it, it becomes a very hard thing to mess around with. So
mhm.
it's Viper PST 2.5 to 10.5. That is a
That's awesome.
fantastic $500 optic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anyways,
Very good.
yeah, Dominate Defense, Precision Holsters, W74, and Rune Tactical, PARA10, save 10% off. They're all the best products on the internet. Check them out. You can do that.
And
We're going a long time. Robert, go ahead.
wait,
Hang
wait,
on.
one
And-
more,
and-
one more thing.
I gotta
Waypoint
find
training.
all the things. You
Waypoint
got too
training's got to
quick.
get you into a class. Go.
No, I need you guys to buy shirts.
Okay, there
I
you go.
just did another order of shirts, and so I have a new design. That's the Halo Warthog
Oh,
on the back of the shirt. It's the OD green.
That's still in your copyright. Let's call it. It's a science
hey-ho.
fiction. Science fiction. We'll call it Master Chef inspired. You know, pig
Learn how to
vehicle
cook
with a
for the
minigun.
recruits.
It's gonna be great. So we have that shirt, and then we also have an A10 Warthog shirt. So now we have 2 Warthogs. You can choose
like
between a black and a OD green one. But actually, one of the listeners just ordered one, and I shipped it out to him the other day. So hopefully he likes it. And I got a bunch of others. So if anybody wants some cool shirts, message me on Instagram at Waypoint Training, and I'll ship it out to you. They're $25 and then $5 shipping.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right.
You're welcome. They're
From,
great shirts.
They're extra comfy. From Sebastian Munoz, if you have a squad that consistently causes a match backup, what can you do as a shooter? I wish Danny Minter would hurry his ass up.
You can do the Adam Carolla at a 4-point intersection thing and point at people and tell them to do things. I need you to go tape those targets. Hey, could you go put that steel up in the back? Could you do this? Could you do that? Hey, he's going to be on deck. I need you to take the scorecard. Once you start doing that, you get pretty good, and especially on level 1s when you basically show the scorekeeper how to keep score, which is the things I can see while the guy is shooting that I can clearly see without mistakes. I can click off and mark as 2 Alpha, Alpha Charlie, whatever like that. And then as soon as its range is clear, unload, range is clear command, I can basically point, these are the 4 targets I need. You walk up, score them. Scoring's complete. You save the ones that are the mistake for somebody else. The amount of time that is saved by just being like the range is clear, 2 Alpha, 2, like calling out 4 targets and going tape them.
Mhm.
Like that's the big flip. Instead of everyone waiting around to get the score, and then they just sit down, and then they get used to being lazy and sitting down and not
Correct.
pushing.
So what I found to be the best way to do this, because I've squatted with some newer folks in the past, especially recently, because I've just been jumping around and shooting with randos.
That's the best way to get people to come to your class.
Exactly.
He's so
I
fast.
call that marketing. Jared pays his $20 match fee. No. That's advertising. He can write that off.
Well, apparently I
Fact.
didn't even pay it last week. I forgot. I somehow signed up as staff, and I got really confused because it wouldn't let me pay. And I was like, "Ugga dugga," and then Dan Ward was like, "What the hell? You're stealing $20 from the club?"
I'm not
like,
stealing.
"Oh,
Don't
that's what
kick me out.
happened?
Don't kick me out. Here's the money. I told you this is
Oh,
what
you
happened.
can only do that 5 times before we.
Don't rush at me, bro." So what was I talking about? Oh, my big thing is you've got to set expectations at the very beginning of the match. And I know that a lot of times they do that in the big shooters meeting or whatever, but a lot of times everyone just doesn't listen to that. So if you are going to be the RO for your squad for the day, when you have the pad and you say, okay, everybody come here real quick. We're just going to set, we're just going to talk for a second. Okay, so this is what we're doing, guys. We have 15 people in our squad. We have to go fast today. What we need to do is if you are the shooter, if you are the person who just shot, or if you are about to shoot, those 3 people are the only 3 people. Again, the only 3 people that should not be resetting
Right.
immediately. Like that's how it should go because we have those 3 people and then we have the 12 others, including the 2 ROs. We're going to be out there. We're going to be resetting. If you set those expectations from the very, very get go, I haven't ever had an issue with the squad. But the problem is depending on who's on the squad, depending on who's there, they might have different expectations than you do for resetting. And so if you set those expectations right from the get go at the very first stage, hey, boys and girls, this is what we're doing. We got so many people in our squad. We have to go fast, guys. If we do not go fast, we're going to start dragging ass. We're going to get screwed. Like, we cannot do it like this anymore. So, this is what we got to do. Thank you. Bye. And then I've never had an issue with that. If you set those set the expectations high and set them early and tell people what your expectations are, never had an issue.
Yep.
See,
and then call them out if they aren't doing it.
I would, since it's Danny Minter, I'd just file an RO complaint and have him banned from the match on a permanent basis.
No, that's if they don't like you.
about
That's if they don't
squad,
like you. It only
but
works if they
I
don't
would
like you.
definitely ban Danny. From our good friend Corbin Cook, talk about the Argentinian primers. I've never used them. I've seen them being sold. I'm sort of curious because they're a little bit cheaper.
Like how much cheaper?
I want. Actually, I'll tell you. He sent me a link. I'm not sure, but it's hard to want to try a different primer, because you're always kind of playing that game of like, are these ones going to work?
American ammunition is the best ammunition made in the world.
$50 1,000.
I'm.
Oh, Tom's tempted.
No, I'm still happy
Tom
with.
is tempted.
I'll pay the $60 1,000 for Winchester stuff like this because this is the one thing I noticed with kind of.
Wait, you're finding Winchesters at 60?
Every once in a while they'll pop up. The last time I ordered a bunch was at like 65.
I haven't seen Winchesters at 60. I mean, outside of the ones that you had all the trouble with. I mean, I've seen Fiocchi's at 60, 65, 66 from
the
a couple
rifle
places.
Ones.
No, small pistol.
Oh, okay. I was having trouble with the small rifle, but the one thing with
in the Winchester.
Yeah, in the Winchester.
Oh, okay.
But trying to run pistol ammo, random and pistol ammo. So the one thing is like when I have some of these foreign primers that I've messed around with, it's not really the shooting that bugs me, it's the reloading that bugs me. Because a lot of them do not bevel the edges of the primers so that when you insert them into the back of the case, they have a tendency to want to rotate and kind of jam up, especially if you're using like a military case primer. But a lot of like the CCIs and the Winchesters and the Federals, instead of having a straight wall cup, they're slightly tapered in. And so what happens is when you're reloading, they kind of auto center and then go in. And so it makes the process a lot easier and less frustrating. And it's kind of like at this time, like I know I don't have the time to run around and go to every store, and I'm basically going to pay $90 per 1,000, going on someplace, and then it's going to be basically at 10 cents a shot. But like, there's a lot of like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money or spend $50 per 1,000 and then basically have 1 out of every 100 not go off, and then 2 out of every 100 while I'm loading it tilt sideways. Because at that point,
I think the problem with the Argentinian ones is like, I mean, it's such a good price that everybody, like in the back of their head, they're like, man, it's a really good price, and everybody wants to try. This is like the construction industry, where we'll have salesmen and stuff like that. They'll come into the office and like, hey, have you seen this latest exterior siding material? And we're like, that is awesome. It does all these cool things. How many houses have you guys put this thing on? And they're like, well, yours will be the first. And we're like, no. No, everybody wants the latest and greatest thing, but they just don't want it to be tried on them. And so everybody kind of is like, oh, has anybody actually bought these primers and had good success? The only things I've ever heard are just people not having good success with them. So it's kind of like,
Well, and
I
then
don't really want to spend that money on it.
it's also not worth it just to buy 1,000 and then pay the shipping and the hazmat fee to get 1,000 to test
Yeah.
out. I mean, so it's
Now,
just
if it was 1,000, if it was 1,000 and shipping and hazmat were all included, $50.
50
I'll throw
bucks.
50
I'll
bucks
try.
down for that.
I'll try.
Yeah.
So
Well, and the big thing you also have to think about anytime you shoot out of the country primers is most countries are not making primers for pistols. Most countries are actually making primers for submachine guns. That's what a lot of the European primers are. They're made for submachine guns.
Really?
So yeah, so they're a lot harder. Pistol primers from out of country are typically made for NATO spec rounds or their submachine guns. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Because if you're shooting a Glock or an M&P, especially if you've lightened that striker spring, and you start shooting these European or South American primers, you might have some more failures. Whereas if you're shooting a hammer gun, you might not have any issues.
You can shoot a hammer gun, but if you run like when I had my Beretta 92s, and instead of running the 16-pound D spring or the 20-pound NATO spring, and you start running a 12 or 13, right, exactly. you're not generating
issues.
If we're playing CZ Shadow game and we're really running light hammer springs, you're gonna start running into the same issues too.
Yeah, we are a funny lot where we play this really expensive game, and yet we're trying to go cheap on the one thing that actually makes the game possible.
Well, we get cheap on the things that are volume. We're not making 10 CZs and trying to put them out for our entire family to go shoot and have a backup gun.
Right.
So we'll spend infinite amounts of money on the one gun. But the stuff at volume, we're always looking to save it over time.
Oh, I get it. I mean, that's the same reason that I take money and I just keep throwing it into my safe, because once a year or so I'll buy bullets, or once a year I'll buy primers, and I'll buy 10, 15, 20,000 in one go. And I'll do that because it saved me 2 or 3 cents a piece.
Yep.
And that's a big deal. And so it does add up. But let's see. From Chris Loki, what kind of car is Tommy getting, and what happened to the Honda?
Just it has this
to the Patreon version of that.
Patreon side sensor problem, maybe a Crosstrack Wilderness or a hybrid Camry, because I'm a basic bitch. Pretty much it. That's the long and the short of it.
From Alex Mansfield, does Jared feel like he's cheating on the PARAcast, since you'll be coming onto the Manny Talk shooting in the relative future?
Well, we'll see if Manny puts out.
Remember, it doesn't matter.
Then it'll be cheating, or then it won't be.
It doesn't matter if
it's a good show.
It doesn't matter if you think you're cheating. It matters if the people you're seeing think you're cheating. Yeah, that matters that the lawyers can prove it in court.
Oh shit.
Has anyone thought about getting their lead levels checked regularly?
No, because if I don't know the answer, then I don't know. Then I'm all right.
You know what? My doctor was concerned because mine was at a 9, and then I talked to.
What's it supposed to be?
Below 5 is a good number. That's where they're concerned. That's where they're not concerned about it.
Leads.
Yeah. Then my friend in California, he was 40 something. So I think I'm doing pretty good. I actually have to go in. The next time I visit the doctor will be the 1st of February or so. And we did the initial one when I first started seeing this doctor. And he said, let's just see what happens come February. If it stays at 9, then that's just where it is. If it starts dropping, then the mitigation efforts, because he's like, we got the numbers back. He's like, okay, what are you doing? I'm like, okay, well, I can wash my hands better. I can, indoor ranges is tough. And we went through all of it and just came up with some ideas to try and see if it helps. And based on what happens in the February doctor visit, we'll make whatever actions necessary. But by comparison, I'm not bad to a lot of people.
Yep.
Indoor ranges are tough. They just are. I mean, anytime you have an indoor range, and you're just always going to have trouble.
Well,
most indoor ranges are not actually correctly done. And
Ventilated.
they have lead everywhere.
Yep. Or properly washed, because it would take somebody
Right.
a few hours of pay to go in there with the pressure washer and wash everything down and rinse it out. But you got
The
a good doctor when he's willing to go in rectally to remove the lead. He's just like, you got to bend over. We got to get this stuff out manually.
The problem with that, Tommy, is that he did that, and then he left, and then my real doctor came in, and he's
It's
like, "Who's
like,
that guy?"
who's this guy? He goes, I've never seen that man in my life.
From Andrew Roderick. What are your thoughts on the letter to the members from Donna? Should we really not be believing anything we read on the internet?
Why?
Who's
Most
Donna?
of it's turned out to be true.
Donna is the managing
Director
director
of USPSA.
for USPA, and she put out well, it had her name at the bottom of it, right? So I mean, I assume it was her, but I mean, it probably came from the board. At least, yeah, I mean, the board. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure the board went and wrote a letter and then had Donna stick her name at the end of it. That's kind of. I mean, I can't imagine the managing director would go out on their own and just put something out without getting approval. So the board of directors had to have done it. But basically, they put out this letter that, as nicely as possible, was probably the most tone deaf thing I've ever seen in my entire life. They wrote. They said that we went and we did this investigation, and we found that the Area 3 director, Scott Armberg, was a dirty bird, and he leaked all this really bad information,
And
and
that
it really hurt.
Frank's probably also dirty too. We don't like Frank either.
Yeah.
We're gonna mention his name in the email. We're gonna keep moving.
We're gonna mention Frank because he's probably a bad guy as well, and we hate him, but we didn't have any proof, so he's still a member. But Scott's a dirty bastard. We don't like him anymore, and he hurt us bad, and we all went home and we cried ourselves to sleep that night, and it's been
Wow.
very emotionally traumatic, and we are now in the process
recovering
of healing.
recovering from the damage that Scott did to our organization from the
Yeah.
email. It's like, give me a break. But
Give me a
the main thing is
tone deaf a-holes.
don't go on
Yeah.
don't go on social media. Don't
Yeah.
go on social media and to listen to anything, because it's not true. And it's just like, okay, like, I've been through this with COVID. I've been through this with the whole vaccination thing. I've been through this with Donald Trump
Fake
and Russia.
news.
Like, yeah, it's the whole like, listen, we're the keepers of all things good, and we might have burned
We would
your
never
friends.
do anything wrong. We're special and we're great people. Trust us.
Well, here's the deal. It's not like they've burned so many people that have left the organization that actually knew what was going on, that these people haven't been able to talk everywhere. And then those people have been not rightly, but let's say removed from places. And it's not like you can't suss
Yeah.
out the stuff from the information that they generally have to put out there, that it's open documents. It's
Yeah,
like,
I think the hardest thing about it is just this idea. Like, if you really think about it, I mean, if I come to you, Tommy, and I say, like, "Hey, Tom, don't believe everything you read on the internet," logically, like, well, yeah, of course, that makes obvious sense.
yeah.
And so
I
but
know that
when
there
you-
aren't single MILFs waiting to say hello
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah,
You
say
shut
that,
your
but
mouth.
Fool
It's
me
true.
Once, shame on me. Fool me 376 times. Maybe there's a problem.
Then why do they keep emailing me, Jared? Why are they constantly in my junk folder? I'm trying to unjunk these people as fast as I can. I'm looking for happiness.
But it's the dumbest thing though, because they sit there in one sentence and they say, don't listen to the things that are said on the internet, but by the way, we're not going to say anything.
We're
so
on
the
the
only
internet.
person, yeah, we're the, like, you only have information from one side,
Oh shit.
but then the organization's like, we're not going to say anything. Well, guess who we're going to listen to? People that are actually talking. That's how that works. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
There's
it's like
a thing called rumor control, and that's a huge thing at work for me. For us, is we always have all these rumors going around, and somebody will say something like, "Did you hear this guy got fired for this?" And then you go and you ask the big boss. You're like, "Hey, what happened to Juan? How did he die? What did he get fired for?" And they say, "Well, we can't talk about it." I'm like, "Well, that's dumb." And then the cool bosses will be like, "Listen, I can't tell you why this person was fired, but what I can say is, in the future, I would advise against drinking on duty." And then everyone goes, "Uh-huh, understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
not do this."
Well, it
And
becomes
that's the rub of the situation. Is I
don't
mean, it's like what is it? The Churchill says, a lie gets around the world so fast, it gets faster around than the truth has
Right.
time to put its shoes on or something like that. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's the ability of saying, "Hey, I know what they said, but you know, here's kind of the reality of this stuff."
well
No,
it
it's a
basically
very simple way of getting around it. Listen, we cannot talk about personnel issues, but what we can talk about is to remind the organization that this, and this are all illegal things that we frown upon. And if you do these things, you could be fired or removed from the organization. That's all. Bye.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
they kind of did that with mentioning Arnberg, like he had leaked stuff, but it's like, but the other part is like, hey, but he might have leaked stuff, but don't believe any of these things that you find on the internet. It's the old "don't do your own research" kind of thing. It's like
Oh yeah, trust us. COVID is safe.
It's Jimmy Dore's thing, you know. It's just like, hey, don't do any of your own research, and then they talk about you gonna go
Yes.
buy a car, and you're like, yeah,
Just
I'm looking
trust
at
the
which car to go.
salesman.
He goes,
He'd never
just
tell you the wrong thing.
trust the salesman. What the fuck
Yeah.
are you doing? Trust the salesman. Do your own
How
research, you
dare you do
dummy.
your own
What are you doing?
research?
Reading? What are you doing?
You
Reading
foolish
perspectives and
fool.
different views? Now we've played this
Yeah.
game before, and now it's everything's sus. Hold out. We'll see. Pay your dues. Don't pay your
For
dues.
the
Just vote these people out when you get a chance. That's all.
for the life of me, I just do not understand why the board and Donna, for that matter, would go through and take the time to put out a statement like that. It's like, were you guys so desperate to put out some kind of a message that you had to put out this poorly
Because
thought
they
out?
are hemorrhaging money.
And they're
That's
old
why.
people, and old people are dumb.
Old people do not like
Probably.
Steger put out a video, and I thought it was very funny when he said he had lunch with Lighton, and Lighton was like, "I bet your business is hurting." He goes like, "My business is booming." Like they do not know how like he brought up the point. They do not know how the internet works. The more you talk
Mhm.
about something, and the more that gets brought up by like banning people or throwing people out, it's like the worse it gets. Like you think
Yeah.
USPSA is the worst organization? Why don't you like justifiably or not justifiably, like whatever you think in your bylaws or whatnot, like throw out Arnberg, one of the most popular and most communicative USPSA directors, and see if that's going to get better for you.
Okay, so here's an interesting question, and I've been thinking about this a little bit, but like, so they got rid of Arnberg. Okay, that exists, but if Arnberg was leaking information, then the question that kind of comes into my mind is because we always talk about this at work, like is that make an environment so good that people aren't going to want to do the wrong thing? Did Arnberg actually try to actually make change? I mean, because it's not like he went in there and be like, "Well, I'm going to go and leak all this shit, and that'll really screw him over because I really want to burn USB setting." I don't think he did that. It almost makes me wonder: did Arnberg actually go in there and be like, "Look, I'm trying to solve these
Pushed
problems,"
pressure to
and
one direction. Like,
he ran into a wall, and then he would try
Right.
and do something else, and he ran into a wall, and eventually you run into a wall so many times that it's like, okay, there's nothing I can do.
well,
That's the
he
question I keep that
he
keeps coming to my mind.
tried
Did he eventually do something?
he tried to get them to stop spending money, and they removed him as the co-chair for bringing up
Yeah.
votes and trying to get them to stop spending so much money. And they were like, "Nope, we're not doing that." He's complaining on the internet that we're spending too much money. He's showing
Yeah.
people he's able to pull up there and show that like this was literally Arnberg. Any path to save the sport, I will participate. I will do to save the sport. He talked to the people who were like he was on this show. He's been on all the other shows trying to move the sport in the right direction for the people who care about the sport.
And I suspect along the way he probably, like, what do you call it? He stepped on some eggshells and things like that. And there's things he could have done better. There's no doubt about that. I'm certain that's the case.
Well,
But at the
the
same time, if he's the only one that's actually trying to move the needle in the right direction and the organization is just stonewalling him, or maybe he just went in and he just was like too aggressive. I don't know.
well,
But
I
it
know the
really
stuff
doesn't
that
look good when they remove the guy who's actually trying to bring more transparency and bring more fiscal responsibility to the organization.
and the
That's
con-
hard.
It doesn't look good.
and the conversations
That's
we
it.
had with him online and offline, and the conversations I hear with him on other shows, He does not participate in character destruction, and even in the emails that are so-called leaked, there is not character destruction leaked out on the emails. On the other side of the argument, everything that gets leaked out of there, broadcast, put up on PSI or whatever, that's from the other side. Guess what it has? It has a lot of
Character.
try to character destruction, demeaning of people, trying to move them aside. How do we move these people aside? And literally, the letter by Donna is don't trust things on the internet. You cannot trust them. Like, it's all some sort of like, it's not like, hey, we're very open. Come see us. Like, the last thing that people have to say when they have no defense is like, don't believe anybody else. Like,
Well,
listen,
and that's the problem. Is I mean, she says that, and it immediately becomes. I mean, number one,
Mhm.
she's saying that to Americans, and number two, it becomes the Streisand effect. Americans will never do what
don't
we
look
tell
in the
them to do because
closet.
that's just
Don't
the way
look in
that
the
we are.
closet. Don't look in the closet. Don't look in the closet.
Yeah,
Don't show them pictures of my house. Do not show
yeah,
the,
yeah.
the honest person would be like, no, we all need to look at the financials. We do not have much time on the ship. No, we need to do this. No, we do not that. Let's have open transparency. I mean, like, you want to be able to trust someone or not even be able to trust one. You know where the good people are and their intentions are. They go like, here is 110% transparency, all the faults, everything out, and then you have your like your little truth and reconciliation. But everyone else that hides stuff in under confidentiality all the time and tells you not to trust people and don't read, not even not to trust people, don't read, don't read. Like whatever, you, like listen,
Yeah. Words
listen,
can only hurt you if you read them.
listen, plan.
Don't play their game.
Listen, we would love to let you know what Jesus said in the Bible. But reading is hard. We don't want to print it, and it's probably best that you guys won't understand it, so we're not going to make a Bible that you guys can read. Everybody cool with that? Great. Also,
Where them little boys at?
listen, your wife needs to sleep with the king, and it's $50 to get rid of the sin. I don't make the rules. It's in the Bible. I wish you. It says right here. That's right. You can't read, but it says
You
that.
can't read Latin, but you know,
It's lit. This is what it's become.
yeah. From Ron Davison, we're trying to grow and promote USPSA/IDPA participation in our tiny club in our tiny town, Jackson, Wyoming. What do you recommend?
Well, Robert keeps
I, the, the
filling
the
up matches.
the easiest thing to do is to put on a match that people want to attend and do it inside of a rule book that is consistent with the national organization of whatever you choose, whether it's USPSA or IDPA. Constantly be promoting it from that perspective, and then if you can do it and you have the ability, um, take a match and actually establish a match that is dedicated towards bringing in people who are interested and say this is for people who are interested, not get a new shooter match or whatever. There's a danger. I learned this later on, but there's a danger in calling it a new shooter match because people think that it's I just bought this gun and I've never had a gun in my life kind of new, as opposed to an introduction to USPSA. That's actually why I changed it. But as long as you kind of have that little match that is helping to onboard newer people to the sport, it surprisingly goes a long, long way. And then, in addition to that, if you have the ability just to kind of help people establish that we are going to create a match that is USPSA legal, per the rule book. I know when I say that I have issues with that sometimes, but it's still following an established rule book. That's having that kind of consistency goes such a long way. I mean,
Yep.
people want to shoot a match that they know what the rules actually are, and this is the biggest challenge that I see right now with like all the protest stuff is like we're going to use PCSL, but we're going to change X, Y, and Z on it, and then down the road they're like, well, we're only going to change X, Y, and T.
Yeah, but
It's
you
just
got
like
to adopt something wholesale. I think one of the things that hasn't been tried for people who can't run a separate match on the side is maybe having I would say a 50% capacity new shooter squad or a 60% capacity, and then like we have like here's our two most experienced range officers who are nice, not the most experienced assholes, but the nice people. This squad has 6 new shooters on it, and we have 7 stages and we have 6 squads. And we're gonna give these guys a little bit of space because the other part that really
that's a
helps
great idea, Tommy.
help people stay is not getting their dick smashed on their first stage. Like, I shot the
Mm-hmm.
stage in 48 seconds and have eight deltas. Jared shot it in
Right.
11 and he has 7 Charlies. And it's just like
That's
So
why
you just go
that's
like,
actually
that's the
why I
biggest
don't.
thing that
I was
I
gonna
would
say,
push is you gotta have your match be fun.
yeah,
That is the number one thing above all else. Is it has to be fun, because if it's not fun, nobody's gonna come. And if it is fun, they will come back and they will tell their friends. They will post videos of it, and they will get more people. And if it's fun, people will come back. If it's not fun, people
yeah,
won't.
and if you have ROs on that squad who are just good, decent shooters and good people to be with who are like, I'm okay with not having the best match performance, so I can shoot first every time to demo it in front of these people, and
Mm-hmm.
and you get that, and you kind of
So
give them advice afterwards, like let me show you how I would shoot it. They go on the clock, they shoot it, they go, this is how I do it, and then you can literally have like, and this is the stage plan we're going to use all together until you guys learn how to do that by yourselves. And if you have a couple guys in your club that would do that for new shooters, that would go a long way. Almost the introduction to USPSA matches, but instead it's at the match, and it's a
mhm.
safe place. And honestly, there's a lot of people who see how good people are and they realize I do not have the time or money to invest to become that good, but I do have the time and money to compete with my friends who's right here and go through this match
Mhm.
and see if we want to try it again in another month or two.
I'm glad you kind of bring that up at the introduction match. I make a point of, so sometimes I just don't have enough new people. This last year I've filled it up almost every single month, which has been crazy. But what I've ended up doing is if I don't have enough people, it just, like, cost wise, I just can't run it, right? I mean, the armory
Yep.
just needs a certain amount of money for it to run, and so um, the Monday before the match, which is on a Thursday, I'll open it up to just normal people. And I'll always tell them, like, look, you can sign up for it, but you're going to be on another squad. I will
Mhm.
take all of the new shooters and they will be on my squad, and I will spend the night with them and I'll talk to them. And I always try and tell them kind of what you're saying, Tom, where, like, look, you're going to see people that shoot this thing and they're like Kenny Terry, right? They just go balls to the wall fast, and they will make you feel horrible about life because you're like, I'm never there. But I always tell them, like, everybody gets into this thing at a different place. Some are good, some are not so good, and most all of us in between. But the reality is that, like, we show up and you are around people who want you to do better and to come again, and that's what Jared's talking about. You make it fun for the people to want to actually do it, and you find that more people will come and they'll participate, and to some extent hopefully they'll actually take it for a long ways, and
So
I think that's a good format.
so this is one thing that UDPL actually did very, very well, that I think, is whenever they ran a match, they had a specific spot, squad one, RO, or the two ROs, or however you want to do it. But have the good people that you trust be able to slot into that position where you're going to be the squad mom for this squad. And that's it's hard to, because I was thinking, well, how would you do this on practice score? You set up two different things, and just like UDPL would do, they would have this is the RO spot, so that way every single squad has at least one, or you could do two good, knowledgeable people. And guess what? Those people, they get a discount on the match. Instead of having to pay the $25, they have to pay $5 or whatever your
Right.
choice is. But those guys get a bonus for being that, okay, no, we're going to go and
They
help
get
and teach.
compensated for helping.
Right. They get
Yeah, because they
compensated
because
for
they're
helping.
agreeing that they're not going to have their bestest match in the
Right.
world, so at
They're
least give them a little bit
sacrificing
of
some of their
something
match,
back.
but they're still having a fun time. And you can say, like, dude, Tom, maybe you shouldn't be the RO this day, or like, hey, maybe Stefan shouldn't be the RO. He's not going to count as the squad mom for this match. But you go through and you actually do that. And so
Hmm.
I really like that UDPL did that. I like that they gave that discount for somebody willing to run a squad. And it also gives that person a little bit more, we'll say, authority, because if, like, who asked the question earlier, if you had the guy who was going slow on the squad,
Oh, Seabass.
if you just a random dude, if I just go up and I start ordering the squad around, some people might be like, who the fuck is this guy?
Hmm.
Why? Well, who are you to tell me what to do? versus if I show up and I'm like, hey guys, I'm your RO for the day. These are my expectations for the class. These are my expectations for the match. These are what I want you to do. This is what I'm going to be doing for you. If you guys have questions, come to me. If you want, tips and tricks on how to shoot better or this, I will happily go over my stage plan, my this, my that, whatever. I'll go over everything with you guys, but I need you guys to do this in exchange. And so I really like that. I really like that
I agree.
manner of doing it. I think it fostered new shooters, and it fostered the sport growing. And I think that's the way to do it.
It also had the benefit of it gave a new shooter an immediate friend. Because now
exactly.
they know you, Jared, and so if they have questions, they can come talk to Jared. Because Jared was really nice and he helped me at my first match, and so I can now show up again and know that Jared's going to be there. And if I like him, I can be on Jared's squad again and stuff like that. There's a lot to be said for that, and I don't know why their USPSA doesn't do that.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, one last question, then we got to get out of here. That's the last one? Thank goodness.
Hold on. Yeah. I want to remind everyone that we have the Not a Cop match that was just posted yesterday. So if you guys are interested in coming to a giant hose fest, that's 12 stages, $80. You get a shirt, you get a prize table, you get trophies if you do well. But
see what car Tom shows up in.
Best bang for the buck you'll find, in my opinion, and probably the whole sport. Because you find me another match that's giving you 12 stages and a prize table and awards and shirts for $80, and I'll give you a crisp high five. So search for it on Practice Squad, Not a Cop. It's going to be April 20th because 4/20 is the perfect day to do the Not a Cop match, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys should come.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks for downloading, listening, and subscribing. Thanks to Robert Wyatt and Jared Stett for hopping on this early show as we get it done for you. And we appreciate all you guys do for us, thanks to our sponsors. And for those two gentlemen, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and souls. We depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Also, you can search YouTube for this. There's a video version of this. Just search YouTube and search PARAcast Firearms Podcast. It'll pop right up, and you can watch us there. Anyways, thank you so much.